Hello, Contrarians, watchers, listeners, subscribers. Here we are with the final warm-up of the summer. Of course, we are recording this over a month in advance because I need a break. And so I'm going to be gone for about 3 weeks. Not completely gone. Our social media is still going to be functioning properly. I'm not going to leave Alex just to fend for himself. But
Isn't like Deadpool and Wolverine coming out soon? That's all you. I can't field those questions.
You're gonna have to just improvise. Use the wonderful tool that is the internet to try to figure out what's going on there. All those cameos. Whatever the case, this is the end of the journey, the end of the summer event. We already did the final Bogdanov film, so this is the final PJ party. Much like with P-Bog, it is so far the last movie that PJ Hogan has had released theatrically. So it really is the end point. We're talking, of course, about Mental, starring returning cast member from Muriel's wedding, Toni Collette. The reunion that we've been asking for the entire summer. It's finally happening. PJ and Muriel.
Back where we started.
Back where we started, but 20 years later, roughly. Have they learned from their mistakes? Have they grown as filmmakers, performers? Well, we discuss all this in the episode. This movie's rotten, so we say really nice things about it in Contrarians Corner, and then we tell you how we really feel on the second half. But here, you know how the warm-ups work. A little bit of extra trivia, a little bit of extra Rotten Tomatoes quotes, and the Josh Gad Minute. So get ready. We're going to close the summer in style. Alex, let's do these quotes. All rotten. Green splotches. Gary Goldstein from Los Angeles Times says, writer-director PJ Hogan may have based Mental on an actual incident from his childhood, but the crazy quilt of a movie that resulted feels anything but real. I don't think we really got into this in the episode, that this is supposed to be somewhat based in reality. I know that you said something about his sister, right? His sister had schizophrenia, I think.
His mom had a mental breakdown when he was 12. That was kind of part of what we're gonna circle back to here in a little bit. So okay. Yeah, it is derived from real life experiences.
So was his father the owner of a record store? Yes.
I don't know about that.
Was he the man behind Empire Records? That's the secret origin of PJ Hogan.
When things got too tough, he just played the drums.
Yes. Anthony LaPaglia making his triumphant return to the Contrarians also.
Joe.
Yes. If you listen to the episode, you will hear me learn in real time that Anthony LaPaglia is Australian.
And that's going to come back here.
Oh, okay, great. Next, Stephen Holden from New York Times says, Mental widely overplays the kookiness and quirk. Wouldn't you say that applies to pretty much every PJ Hogan movie except for maybe Confessions of a Shopaholic? And even then.
On Peter Pan.
Well, Peter Pan is kooky and quirky. Jason Isaacs is having the quirkiest time of his life in that movie.
I suppose so.
And,
yeah. Quirk is like, that's his fashion, man.
Did they not know who made the movie they were watching? It's right there in the credits. Next, Jason Best from Movie Talk says the humor is every bit as rude and raucous as before, but Hogan's touch here seems heavy-handed, and the use of songs from The Sound of Music doesn't work nearly so well as the joyous ABBA tunes that drove Muriel's wedding.
This is true, but we talk about in the episode just because ABBA is just so damn, like, it's ABBA. So, you're not going to really top that. So I agree with that, but it's not surprising, I guess. I don't know why you'd act surprised.
Could you replace The Sound of Music with a different musical that is more...
Well, we talk about this in the episode. This movie is like a cover of The Sound of Music. So I think it is kind of imperative for this particular film.
Well, maybe you make it a cover of something else.
Oh, yeah, you could do that. You can do like if there's just one kid, it's like Annie. Use a soundtrack from Annie.
I think maybe Little Shop of Horrors, and you have twisted people, quirky people there. Or when you do the Mental remake, just make it Hamilton. And
Liev Schreiber's the masochist that gets off on the dental work.
Yes, why not? Also, every bit as rude and raucous as before. So, did you ever feel like the PJ Hogan movies were rude?
I mean, people are mean to Muriel, and
But not.
there's certainly aspects of Best Friend's Wedding that I think some people could take as kind of, oh, this is rude.
Mean spirited, but rude and raucous makes me feel like this movie.
That's something that
Pushes it
someone in
further.
like 1997, like a Newsweek article, would have used to describe Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Like that would be like the headline: "Rude and Raucous, America's New Cartoon" or some shit.
Yeah, well, the return of PJ Hogan to big screen, rude and raucous. Maybe I think that compared to his other movies, this one is a little. We're not going to spoil what happens at the very end. We talk about it in the episode at length, but that final movement in the story is very much unlike, I think, anything else that we've seen from him all summer.
Mm-hmm.
So, watch the movie. And then we're going to close with Lou Luminick from the New York Post, who says, "The scenery down under looks great, and you certainly can't write off a film where Liev Schreiber plays a shark hunter."
That's fair.
Liev Schreiber, Shark Hunter. I mean, I would watch that spinoff.
Oh, absolutely. There's another one here that I thought was pretty good. Lee Patish, it's a Paatsch, from the Herald Sun, said it was a true cinematic lemon, and said, having paid $18 to see Mental last week, all I can say is this: I would like $100 back.
That's unfair. We rented it on the Contrarians community account. I don't feel like we were ripped off.
No.
Not even $5.
There's too many things interesting about this movie. Doesn't mean it's a great movie. Doesn't mean it's necessarily a good movie. There's a lot of interesting things in this, and not one that like I regretted watching. Because even still, like, we have fun doing this, but there's been movies we've done that I'm like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, no, this is a good conversational piece, and I can certainly see somebody, their minds being blown when, if they've seen this and they've seen My Best Friend's Wedding, but they haven't made the connection that it's the same person behind them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow, really? Yeah, this is like his true self, not when he's trying to be all Hollywood. And yes, the scenery down under looks great. I think that from the opening, first shot when you're just getting to the house, it just looks amazing. It's a I think that after being trounced by Lord of the Rings, back when he made Peter Pan, PJ Hogan took some notes and was like, okay, next time I have a chance, I just know that the way that you win over audiences is by just giving them the vista.
Sprawling shot of like the hillside and whatnot. That my first note was, is this Lord of the Rings? What is this?
Yes.
You know, I was thinking just when you said that, we are very close to the subject material and also like the proximity in which we've watched all these movies. I think it's kind of, I don't know if you and I can be fair judges of this. Peter Bogdanovich, yes. But Muriel's Wedding, My Best Friend's Wedding, Unconditional Love, Peter Pan, Confessions of a Shopaholic, and Mental. There's a chance someone could watch all those movies and not connect that the same guys behind all of them.
I think that maybe the easiest one would be Muriel's Wedding and My Best Friend's Wedding. Like,
yes.
You tell them, you're like, that makes sense.
Yes.
But then after that,
the rest of those, he's just fucking shooting in the dark, man, pissing in the wind.
I think that once you break it down, once you think about it, you start seeing the connective tissues.
Oh yeah, and I'm saying that's where we're at. We did all this, but I'm just saying, like, someone could watch,
Unconditional Love.
Well, not Unconditional Love, but I was just thinking like P-Bog, like they all laughed and
Saint Jack.
Yeah,
it's
something like
Ben
that.
Gazzara.
Yeah, well, I mean that too. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is he's just a true wild card. PJ Hogan, that is.
Yeah. And furthermore, I guess what Alex is saying is if you want the true PJ Hogan experience, you have to watch his 6 movies, ideally in the span of 2 months or so.
It leads you to ask a lot of questions and like consider a lot of things. So yeah.
Yeah. Those are the quotes, Alex. Before we go to trivia, let's place Josh Gad in this movie. It's the Josh Gad Minute.
Now this was difficult because there's not a heavy male presence in this movie per se. Like it's I mean they're individually, but like the majority of the characters in this are female.
Right.
We do have LaPaglia, obviously, very strong male presence, and then Liev Schreiber, I think if I had like a Mount Rushmore of my under-championed heroes of acting, Leave might be on there. So we're not getting rid of him. And then the other male in this, Trout, played by Sam Clark. If we put Josh Gad in there, it'd be weird. The age difference and whatnot. It's just we're not going down that. So I got a little bit creative, and my pitch would be that Shirley, Doris. So my pitch would be that Shirley doesn't have a sister, and the girls don't have an aunt. Is we would use this to cast as the uncle, her younger brother, and you could still have like the quirk of he collects dolls or something that he collects and loves, because that's a staple of the Doris character in this. And with the ending being what it is, they're doing it this way at least creates the possibility that the comedy could be higher with the way Josh Gad reacts to what's going on.
Yes, I can see that. I like it too because the sister character, which now would be the uncle character, even though she's mostly an unsympathetic character, she gets a couple scenes where she lowers her defenses and talks to Toni Collette, not Toni Collette, to Shirley, to the mom, and that means that the Gad would get to play some
Rebecca
dramatic.
Gibney.
What's her name? Rebecca what?
Gibney.
Okay, Rebecca Gibney, who does great in the movie. Yeah, I like it. I think it's good, and Uncle Gad having to complain about these girls constantly just being messy and dirty and rude and raucous. Yeah, I like it. You could do I like this. We're going with this, but you could do the Trout character, Alex. You would have to use technology to make him younger.
Like, okay,
a young Josh Gad.
Because this movie definitely had the budget to do shit like that.
I think if you can afford Josh Gad, then you're on the next level, the next tier of budget, and because
you still you would still do it as Trout. It's just you would have to eliminate the romantic aspect of it. Like he could be her like zany coworker that plays songs and stuff like that, and still has the torture of Liev Schreiber at the end. Yeah. It's just because in the episode, like there's that romantic sequence that we both say could just be cut out of the movie and you don't need it. So
yeah, you're right. We both liked it, but we both said, okay, you could take it out and the movie flows better.
So Gad could just be like her kind of weird coworker that hangs around with them
and plays the guitar. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, there you go. Two options. A lot of Gad or a little bit of Gad, but musical. So
I mean, Josh Gad is rattlesnake venom. A little bit will get you.
Unless it's a Frozen movie, and then you just get a lot of him.
Yeah,
but it's good.
Olaf. You get an Olaf of them.
All right, Alex, hit me with some trivia.
Didn't really find much in the way of a budget. A box office of $4.4 million. Can't imagine the budget was less than that, just for the players involved. But to what we're talking about, director PJ Hogan based the script on his own mother's mental breakdown when he was 12 and his politician father's refusal to tell anybody about his wife's illness in case it hurt his electoral chances. Chances, not cases. Thank you. As in the film, Hogan's father recruited a hitchhiker to babysit the family. He came home from school and there was this strange woman rolling a cigarette, knife in her boot, dog beside her, and she said, "Bit of a mess in here, isn't it?" Hogan recalled.
It's literally what happens in the movie.
Yeah. That was the woman who took care of us. She pretty much lived with us, I remember, for 6 to 8 months, even after my mom returned home because they got on. So there you go.
So PJ Hogan is Coral? Right?
I guess, yeah. No, because Coral's like late teens. She's like 17, I think, in this. So I guess maybe the one with schizophrenia in the movie, the little girl, well, she's, kind of like a preteen. So I don't know.
Well,
he sees himself in this movie. I can't say for one character that though. When shooting Muriel's wedding, Hogan and his producer wife, Jocelyn Morehouse, would entertain Toni Collette with stories of the real Shaz. Toni just said, "You've got to make a film about this woman, and if you do, I'm playing her." Hogan's sister also had schizophrenia and told him, "You should put me in the movie. I want people to know what it's like." So yeah, we did cover that at some point in the
That
episode, I
part,
believe.
that's what I remember. Okay,
Yeah.
so the girl with schizophrenia can't be PJ Hogan. PJ Hogan can be one of the middle ones,
Yeah, I
one
guess
of the
so.
redhead girls. That is
Or just
wild.
not. It's because that
It's just
we
directing from
talked
outside.
about it. Like it makes the movie a bit more interesting that it's a sole female perspective. It makes certain aspects of it, well, like we said, things that necessarily you and I couldn't relate to, but also creates a more interesting story, and then definitely makes the things Anthony LaPaglia says and do resonate in a much deeper way.
It would explain, because, and I'm pretty sure I said it when we were recording the main episode, like the parallels between this and Muriel's wedding, as far as the family unit and the father that's kind of an asshole and treats everybody badly, but then at the end there's this attempt at giving him some sort of redemption, and that is amplified. The good and the bad is amplified here in this movie, in Mental. And if he's drawing from his own memories in that character, the LaPaglia character here, and then the character of the Daddy Muriel's wedding is supposed to have some seeds of what his own father was, then maybe it explains why he's reluctant to completely vilify him and
Yeah.
instead tries to show you that,
the Kevin Von Erich route, man.
Yes, it's Fritz.
To be fair, I don't think PJ Hogan's dad drove 4 of his sons to an early grave. So, allegedly. Sorry, Fritz. So we just mentioned her, Rebecca Gibney, who played Shirley in this. She put on 20 kilograms, which I looked up. That translates to 44 pounds for the role. And had to stop. She almost had a complete health collapse. And they ended up using a fat suit. She stopped her aggressive eating habits following the health scare she had with this. Basically, I guess the doctor told her she was about to just give herself diabetes.
Jesus.
Yeah, which is really fucking intense. She didn't immediately trim down. She maintained the overweight figure, and I'd say that
she looks great in the movie.
She's not fucking John Leguizamo in Spawn or some shit that we're talking about here. For as long as she could during the shooting of the feature, without further putting her health in jeopardy. She said, though, the double chin is all mine, which is kind of a cute add-on there at the end. But I was thinking about, because I was looking into it, I was looking at pictures of her around that time, and I've got over 30 years of time clocked in on putting my body together. So it's one of those things that this shit happened with Jared Leto twice, and Morgan Spurlock, R.I.P. These folks who are in relatively good shape and health, yeah, when you shock your system like that, bad things can come from it. That's why it is always kind of that method acting thing. Sometimes it's
I don't think
the risk reward.
But we
Jared Leto was
that.
fucked up for a long time after Chapter 27. He had a really hard recovery after that.
And if you haven't seen that movie, trust us, it wasn't worth it.
Even funnier. Yeah, makes it even funnier. He thought he was going to win an Oscar for that shit. And in this case, it's fine. And then especially in the end, for it to be that she's supposed to be this overweight character, it's no. But someone like that who, again, had a small frame, yeah, it's a shock to your system. So when I read stuff like that, I always just kind of think of what I just said, the risk reward aspect of it. And I don't know.
I think that we're past the point where it's necessary, though. And if it's not necessary, why would you do it? We are at a point where the makeup technology plus, I'm sorry, Alex, but the computer technology, together working in harmony, you can do it to where no actor should be putting their lives at risk.
Yeah.
So
from just a practical standpoint, Danny DeVito is a portly fella, but I always think of if makeup can make someone look like they made him look as Oswald Cobblepot in Batman Returns, then they can figure out a way to make you look a bit heavier. It's admirable. It is, and I God knows I respect someone who loves their craft and are dedicated that deeply to it. And I threw that kind of stray at Morgan Spurlock in there. You can even kind of make say he was making a documentary, so it's like, yeah, but it is just kind of surprising to read those things sometimes and be like, man, especially because, again, this ain't fucking There Will Be Blood. This movie that we're talking about here,
Right.
that she put her health at risk like that. It's exactly right. It's just kind of
Like, I blame De Niro. Like, the first ever story I heard
Raging
about
Bull.
that, Raging Bull.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you look at it, and yes, so I understand you want to. There is a very specific effect you're aiming for when you know what an actor looks like, and then you see that they've transformed themselves, and it makes sense within the story of Raging Bull. Just like going to the other Jared Leto movie, which was much better, when is it Dallas Buyers Club? That's it, right? Where he lost a lot of weight, and so it is, when it's effective, it works. When you're just doing it for the gimmick, I like The Machinist,
I
and
was just about to ask your thoughts on The Machinist.
I like it. I think it's a good movie, and I think that Christian Bale is great. And I understand the theory, the logic behind, like, well, he needs to be really skinny and whatever. But you could have, at that point, I think that you could have done it a different way to where he doesn't. Like, I wonder how he feels now. Like, all those years later, does he look back at it and like
Bale a 1-2 on that one? Because then I think I remember reading he had some issues with all the weight he put on for American Hustle, and fuck that movie. So
at least The Machinist is a good movie.
There you go. So an interesting tidbit there. I'm glad that Rebecca Gibney, cooler heads prevailed and kind of common logic came through, and they just realized, oh, this is a movie. We have props and things that we can do. There's certain angles you can shoot at. I mean, the pornographic industry's thrived on that for 50 years, for God's sakes. So, I mean, this isn't, Last Temptation of Christ or something with a lot of interesting behind the scenes stories. So there was one offshoot that it was definitely the thread on the sweater that I started pulling of on the IMDb section of the trivia page. It says that Anthony LaPaglia was offered a part in Quentin Tarantino's Django Unchained, but because Tarantino and the company failed to tell LaPaglia he got the part, LaPaglia didn't know until months later, and during that time, he had already committed to do this movie instead. So, I had to do a bit of research on this, and Anthony LaPaglia is quite outspoken. And for those of you who don't know, Django was, I think, one of Tarantino's messier productions because there was a lot of people that were tapped for it, dropped out, and like the filming schedules were all over the place. I know it went over budget. I can't imagine that Tarantino ever has a clean workplace, when he's making movies, but I remember there was a lot to it. Went and found a piece from Looper.com, not the official website of the great Rian Johnson film, but Looper.com by Michael Trench, dated October 4th of 2023. Anthony LaPaglia reveals the real reason he dropped out of Django Unchained. Being cast in a Quentin Tarantino movie is a major bucket list item for countless actors. This was the case for Without a Trace and Frasier star Anthony LaPaglia, who was set to join the star-studded cast of Tarantino's 2012 Western epic Django Unchained. Recently, the actor opened up about the tough decision that resulted in his absence from the eventual two-time Oscar winner. LaPaglia was announced as part of the cast in October of 2011, where he was set to portray one of the dastardly brothers who attempts to transfer Django to a mining company. By August 2012, it was, you know where we're going with this. By August 2012, it was revealed that LaPaglia exited the project, primarily pointing towards the messy production schedule as his reasoning. In an interview with Inside of You, not the Aldous Snow tune, but looks to be a YouTube podcast, and or just a video podcast. Could have audio. I don't know. Inside of You. LaPaglia shared that while waiting for the shifting schedule to clear up, a new obligation presented itself. They kept pushing my part. They pushed it for months, he said. And then I got another job. As soon as I got the job, Quentin's ready for me. The job in question was a key role in Underground, the Julian Assange story. Now, I don't know if he actually says this because it looks like article is just assuming that's what it was.
Right.
That's the way, like the context, like the way the sentence is structured. That's what leads you to believe. Julian Assange, directed by Robert Connolly, who LaPaglia worked with prior on 2009's Balibo. Leaving Tarantino's film was a tough choice with LaPaglia with Joe, believing that the director was upset by his decision. However, a lot more was at stake if he exited Underground, with the actor explaining, by then it was an Australian film that got its funding based on my name. Okay, so he's confirming it here. This movie, if I pulled out, we're going to lose their financing, and I felt responsible for that. I knew me not being in Django, Quentin wasn't going to lose 1 cent financially. Fortunately, for LaPaglia, he wasn't the only A-lister who missed out on the opportunity. And then it goes into the actors that were in and out of Django Unchained, most famously Will Smith, but also the likes of Jonah Hill, Sacha Baron Cohen, Kurt Russell was supposed to be in it at one point in time.
That surprised me.
Yeah. So still, Mental would have been filmed around that point in time.
Yeah, I was trying to pull up his filmography here because I was about to say, look, regardless of which dastardly Australian he played in Django, I would think that it's kind of a no-brainer because he gets a hell of an Oscar scene in Mental, and I don't think that playing a small part in the Tarantino movie would do anything for his career. I mean, not that Mental did anything for his career, I guess,
but the main thing, the most interesting part of this, whether it is Mental, it seems to be the Julian Assange story. I mean, he pretty much confirms that. It would be funny if he just mistook it and it was Mental that was hinging on his involvement.
That makes a lot more sense. Although I think Toni Collette is the bigger star there. So
all love in the world to Joe, but
and Liv Schreiber,
of course, the only non-Aussie in the movie or of the lead roles. Anyway, whatever the case may be, whatever movie you want to attribute it to that he wasn't involved, I think now we can blame Anthony LaPaglia for having to endure Quentin Tarantino's performance as an Australian slave trader.
Oh man, he really did hurt Django more than he thought it would.
I'd love so much the idea of LaPaglia drops out and Quentin's like, well, fuck it, I'll do it myself.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. I mean, both 2012 Mental and Underground.
It's also very possible he was working on both, like right around the same time period. So
and got paid less on both of those together versus
you're
what
exactly
he was
right.
paid in Django.
A lot more people saw Django Unchained, and 50 years, 100 years from now, a lot more people are going to know what Django Unchained is. But if you ever stumble across Mental, his performance and his particular Oscar clip in it is so much more than what he would have done in Django.
It's like, what is he going to show his kids when they're old enough?
Oh, yeah.
You know, his 5 minutes in Django or his like 10-minute tour de force confession about his childhood in Mental.
But I did just want to bring that up. The pair of Mental and Underground, the Julian Assange story, which was a TV film, by the way.
I have to say, that is pretty impressive and I guess humbling to me, because I never would have thought, even though it makes perfect sense, I wouldn't have thought that, when you think, oh, well, somebody's financing, like a project's financing is hinging on an actor or an actress, you think like the big A-listers.
Oh, yeah.
But it makes perfect sense, actually, that, oh, yeah, of course, you attach Anthony LaPaglia to your movie. And it's like, all right, well, some people are going to put some money there.
Especially a fucking made-for-TV movie, like where the stakes are high in the sense of, like, we need something on this.
Get me LaPaglia.
Get me LaPaglia. So, anyway.
Truly disappointed that you didn't have the trivia fact that I was hoping you would, which is how many times do they say mental in Mental?
Perhaps if I ever revisit it, I can go through and count them. But
you can just add it yourself.
We live in a reality in which Quentin Tarantino, I think he says, funny little bugger, aren't you? There's something ridiculous. Would you have that at the lower end of Tarantino's performances in his movies?
Just sifting through the muck. The real question is like, which one do you like? Do you have a Tarantino performance where you go his movies, where you go, this one's good?
Reservoir Dogs.
But see, is it
because
the performance or is it the monologue?
That movie's so unpolished. And okay, yeah. So Django, I can at least kind of laugh at. The Pulp Fiction one's just kind of like, all right, I get it, man. You want to be in this movie. You want to be in your movie. The best Tarantino acting performance was also covered in the Summer Journey that we have done. So
in his movies, yeah, because
well, I was kind of using that as like a segue to a close here. That
okay.
We're moving outside of Quentin Tarantino's movies now, so I will say that in our Summer Journey, we do touch upon what I think is number 2 of the Tarantino acting performances.
Is number 1 still the Muppets Wizard of Oz?
Absolutely. Muppets yes. Wizard of Oz. Tarantino just steals the show in that movie. And yeah, you'll have to go back and listen to the whole Summer Journey just to find out which movie we're talking about that Tarantino pops up in. Shouldn't be hard to do if you look at the dates of these things, but and I can promise you he doesn't call anybody a bugger and he's not speaking an Australian accent there, so
yeah, no, it's Tarantino literally being Tarantino. Well, that's it for the summer. We have, of course, a lot more exciting things to come. It doesn't end here with the summer, but it does end when it comes to PJ Hogan and Peter Bogdanovich. They will attend our anniversary award ceremony, so we will be hearing again from P-Bog and PJ, but no more of his movies. Eventually, as we've teased, we will talk about Texasville. We'll get around to that one.
Yeah.
But that's
take a break from the Bogdanovich and PJ Hogan side of the world for a little bit.
It's P-Bog PJ Detox. That's that's the next project. I couldn't tell you, Alex, even though I know we have it somewhere. I couldn't tell you what the next episode is. So, Corey, I guess you put a big question mark at this point in the video. But it will be there in 10 days or so. So thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around for the summer. Obviously, you're here. If this is the first video that you're watching, then you're starting from the end, and that's not a bad thing. You can just go back, like Alex said, and see what else we did with these guys. But thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Take care.